Hello and welcome to First Impressions, a video series where I give my initial reaction to a series of websites and give you a kind of impromptu review of those sites based on usability, quality of copy, quality of design, and how effective they are. I've been asked by the wonderful people at Balsamiq if I would review websites, give my feedback on user submitted websites based on my 23 years experience of working in the digital field. I should introduce myself. My name is Paul Boag, and as I've said, I've been working in digital for a very long time and have reviewed hundreds of websites over those years, and I've got reasonably good at giving rather kind of ill-considered but quick responses to various websites that I look at, and that's what I want to do today. It's really a bit of fun. It's obviously not a proper in detail review, but it will give you a little bit of an impression. Now remember, I haven't really looked at these websites before. I've got the URL, I've loaded them up as a tab on the screen, and I'm just going to go for it, and we'll see what we can discover and what we can learn about these websites. So here we go. Okay, let's flip across to today's website. Pull up your socks. Okay, so from the looks of what I'm looking at here, we are on a standard e-commerce site, an e-commerce site that appears to sell socks. Okay, this is an interesting one from the guys at Balsamiq to send through to me, but let's see what we've got. E-commerce sites are always very interesting to review and really interesting to work on. E-commerce sites are my favorite sites to work on simply because there's a very tangible goal you're trying to reach. You're trying to improve conversion. You're trying to encourage people to purchase, in this case, socks. But increasingly, e-commerce sites like this one are quite challenging to work on. And the reason that they are quite challenging to work on is because, well, why? Why would you buy socks from this particular site rather than buying them from another site where maybe you've already got an account? Maybe you're an Amazon Prime user. Why wouldn't you just buy your socks from there? Maybe you buy from a particular high street retailer. You buy other clothes. So why would you buy your socks here? Also, why would you go to a site that just sells socks when you can buy it alongside other clothing items that you want on other websites? Also, from looking at the socks that I'm just seeing on the home page here, these aren't the cheapest socks in the world. £15 for a pair of socks is a fair amount of money. So there's a bit of an uphill battle that these guys are faced with. How do we persuade people to buy socks from our site? Well, there are a number of different approaches that you can take, but one of those is to offer an outstanding customer experience that's superior to what other organizations can offer. Or another approach is to tell a better story, to create a compelling case for buying socks here. So let's look at those two different options. So providing a better customer service. Well, certainly this is a very simple, very clean site. I'm not seeing any immediate kind of howlers on it, but that's not going to be enough in itself. So what would make a better service for me when it comes to buying socks? Well, one of them would be a really good return policy if I don't like the socks that I've got. Right, let's see if I can find anything on return. I'm not seeing anything here. Delivery and returns. Okay, well, that's immediately something to be said for that, right? Often delivery and returns are one of the main things that people ask about when they go to an e-commerce site. You know, what if I change my mind? What if I don't like it? What if it doesn't fit? So it's very important to put that kind of information very front and centered in people's minds. Probably right below the cart button, you want to say something like unconditional return policy or free delivery both ways or something along those lines. But they're not doing that on this site. Instead, they've got it down at the bottom. So let's see what it actually has on. Okay. So actually I'm having to pay for delivery here unless I spend over £30 on socks. Well, that's quite a lot of money to spend on socks. Unless, of course, I'm particularly cheap and the rest of the world is buying high quality socks. I don't know. But certainly that seems like quite a lot of money to be spending to me. So that means I'm going to have to pay £1.95 on top of the normal delivery cost. Okay. And if I'm delivering it outside of the UK, that's going to be even more expensive. Let's have a look at their return policy. Right, so let's say I didn't like my socks. We will refund unwanted goods in their original unworn condition within 14 days of return. Well, that's the statutory minimum in the UK for buying unseen goods. So again, they're not really offering an outstanding customer experience here. So they haven't gone down that route. So an alternative would be, so if you want to offer an outstanding customer experience, you can do things like offer an amazing return policy. 365 days return policy is what Zappos offer on their website. And not only that, they pay postage in both directions. So if you don't have to pay to return the product. So that is what I call a differentiator. That's what differentiates them and encourages people to buy from Zappos. Okay? At the moment, we're not seeing anything like that. The other approach you can do is you can tell a story, right? You can explain why these socks are special in some way. Now, that might be a story about how the company was founded, or the quality of the socks that are there, or that the socks are made by people in developing countries and they get a big percentage of the profits every time the socks are sold, or a percentage of the socks that are sold goes to charity. For example, there is one shoe company that every pair of shoes you buy from them, they give a pair of shoes to somebody in a third world country. So tying a story around your product is another way of making people buy. But unfortunately, on this particular site, I'm not seeing anything particularly like that. There is no compelling reason to buy my socks here. But let's set that aside for a little while and actually say, okay, well, we're going to buy some socks. One option, obviously, is the fact that you can buy gift boxes. Now, maybe that's a slight differentiator because you can buy a variety of different socks. So I'm going to buy this happy birthday gift box because I'm particularly cruel to my son and I'm going to buy him a pair of socks for his birthday. That sounds like a nice dad thing to do. Right. Size. Now, immediately I'm hit with a problem here. Right? I don't know his size. How do I know what size socks someone takes? I know what shoe size my son has, but I don't know what sock size. 41 to 46 means nothing to me, right? So you're not matching my mental model at that point, okay? And that's going to cause me a problem. But then something really weird happens. I just noticed when I clicked on this. There's only one option anyway. So now I'm left wondering whether these socks are actually going to fit my son or not. How do I know? Also, the return policy is not great, right? And to know whether or not those socks fit him, he's going to have to put them on. And your return policy said you can't return stuff that's been worn. I've now got a problem. So thinking of this an e-commerce website from the user's perspective is really important. And in particular, to think about the objections, the concerns, the risks that people have in their minds. So one risk is that this doesn't fit, right? And how are you going to deal with that? And actually, it's a risk that you've made worse by talking about sizes in terms that I don't understand. It doesn't match my mental model. My mental model is shoe sizes. Okay, but fair enough. So color. Well, again, I've got no options here. So why am I actually being shown these options? And that's a common mistake I see on a lot of websites, right? A lot of websites will show unnecessary information or show information by default because it's simply within the template, right? There's a template that has these drop down boxes. So the fact that there's only one option in them, they're still displayed anyway. But in those kinds of situations, we really should be hiding that kind of information too. In terms of the imagery, that's great. I can get a nice zoomed in picture of the socks, see exactly what they look like, which is great. But it would be quite nice to have some aspirational imagery in there as well. When you talk about fashion, a big part of it with fashion is I want to have a certain look. I want to project a certain image to the world. Now, just showing products in isolation like that doesn't really give a sense of what that image is. But if you're showing real people wearing those socks alongside a nice pair of shoes or some nice trousers in a nice environment, then it becomes more aspirational, and that tends to subconsciously influence us and encourage us to make that kind of that desire to buy, to be like that. So just bear that in mind as well. It's quite nice to know there's lots of different ways to pay here. That's always reassuring to see different options there. Share this product? Really? Am I likely to share a pair of socks with the world? And isn't that actually just a distraction from what we want people to do, which is add the product to the cart? The other problem with share buttons is that they're, as you can see here, they're styled from a design point of view in line with the different platforms that they're being shared on. So, for example, the pin it is bright red. And that really makes it stand out on this particular page and makes it look like quite an important call to action when really it's quite a secondary thing. So when it comes to e-commerce, I really believe in stripping things back. Reduce people's cognitive load, only show them what is entirely necessary to help them in their purchasing process. Don't distract them by a secondary call to action of sharing a product. We want them to buy. We don't want them to share. That's not what we're about. Okay, so let's add these socks to our basket. Okay, so we've gone through to the cart, absolutely fine. Now, actually, you've done really good here because you have stripped back a lot of the unnecessary stuff, okay? But I'm not seeing anything about delivery charges here, and that makes me nervous, okay? You need to make it clear that there's a delivery charge, shipping and taxes to be calculated at checkout. Now, I understand why that is, because it depends on where I live, but at least some indication of what the delivery charges would be good at this stage. Also, I've got quite a few different options here. It's almost a little bit overwhelming, right? So let's say, for example, I wanted to pay with PayPal, right? Do I hit the pay with PayPal button or do I actually want to check out? Those options are very, very similar to one another. Right? It's not immediately clear which I do, and what that often leads to is choice paralysis. People are unable to work out which to choose between, so they choose neither. Okay? So, and also again, because there's the branding going on here, it would be easy to miss that checkout box and your eye to be drawn immediately down here. Now, you might be watching this video thinking, how could you miss that checkout box? Well, that's because you're sitting, having it talked through with you. It's a very quiet environment, etc. But in the real world, life isn't like that. We've got kids screaming in the background, or a cat sitting on our lap, or we're on a train going somewhere. So our cognitive load is pretty high anyway. And little things can cause big distractions. Okay, so let's click on checkout. Right, okay, so we've got a normal form to fill in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop in my information. What are you asking me for? All fairly obvious information that you should be asking me for. I'm very proud of you that you haven't got the newsletter checkbox checked by default. Good for you. You're not asking me for anything that's particularly unnecessary, so that's fine. Let's click next. Now you're hitting me with that delivery charge. Now, you might want to look at your analytics, but it wouldn't surprise me if there's a reasonably high drop-off rate at this point when people suddenly discover that they've got a delivery charge hitting them. Now, another thing is you're actually only asking me for a discount code at this point. Now, if I just pop up another window and go back to your home page, you're actually offering me a discount code relatively quickly, right at the very beginning, right? But when I add something to my basket, there's no option to enter my discount code. So this is the price I think I'm going to pay, even though I've been given a discount code. So really, you want to move that discount code right up to the the shopping cart, so that people know the actual price they're going to pay in their shopping cart, rather than having to wait all the way through to here. But of course, that doesn't apply to us right now, so we'll keep going. And then we get through to the credit card information. Now, what's interesting here is at this point, you're giving me the PayPal options. Okay, so actually it didn't need to be earlier, because this is when I'm thinking about paying, right? So sure, you want to tell people earlier they can pay with various credit cards and PayPal and Google Pay, etc. But in terms of making that decision about payment, this is the point that you need to be doing that kind of thing, all right? Not before. Well, I'm not going to complete the order for obvious reasons, but they're not too bad a flow. Generally speaking, pretty good. So let's see if there's anything else that immediately springs to mind about this site. Let's have a look at the product details. They were all pretty clean, weren't they? There's not a lot to say there. Okay, so there's one last thing that I wanna focus on, which is this area right down here. The join our mailing list. Okay, every site you ever visit has something like this. We want people's email addresses, don't we? But again, we face that same problem that we had right at the beginning of this video. The very first thing I said is, why would you buy from this website when there are so many other options available? And the same question comes up front and center right now. Why? Why would I sign up to your mailing list? What am I getting? You don't give me any information whatsoever, okay? You just say join our mailing list. Join our mailing list, what? To get exclusive discounts? To recommend fashion advice? What is that mailing list going to give me? You need to give me a benefit, a reason for this. The other thing is you need to do exactly the same as with the whole site. You need to do some objection handling. So with the whole site, I said that, objections to buying the socks are things like, well, what's the return policy going to be like if I don't like the socks? Am I going to have to pay delivery costs? Those are the objections you need to deal with for the site as a whole. With the mailing list, it's, are you going to spam me? How much are you going to email me? Are you going to sell my data to a third party, etc.? So you need to deal with all of those objections. To demonstrate this, I just want to pop across to my own website and show you how I deal with it in order to encourage people to sign up to my newsletter. So my newsletter is at the bottom of the page, just like yours. And here it is, right? So first of all, I give the benefit. Keep improving your site with my newsletter. So I make it very clear what benefit they're going to get if they subscribe to my newsletter. They're going to be able to continuously improve their website. Then the second thing I do is I start dealing with those objections and questions that people have, right? So first of all, are you going to be spamming me? No, I'm not, because I'm only going to be contacting you every 2 weeks. Secondly, what will the email contain? You will receive support improving your site by creating a better user experience and more effective digital strategy, right? Next, what if I don't like it and want to unsubscribe? You can unsubscribe in one click. And I will never share your email address with anyone. You see the difference? I've systematically addressed people's objections. And actually, that idea of dealing with objections is something that applies on all websites, whatever they are, okay? Whether they're an e-commerce site, a blog, or whatever. You need to think, What risks are there to the user from what I'm asking them to do? Whether it's purchase something, sign up for a newsletter, contact us. And you need to directly address those objections in users' minds. So there you go. It's amazing what you can learn from a simple e-commerce site, isn't it? Lessons that apply not just to other e-commerce sites, but to pretty much any site that wants somebody to take action. We need to have a clear idea, a clear reason why people should buy with us rather than your competitors, a story to tell, or some aspect of outstanding service that means that your offering is the no-brainer offering. And then we also need to reduce that risk, don't we? Deal with those objections that people have. And we need to focus people, remove those secondary calls to action that are just a distraction, and focus people on what really matters on our website. Of course, you probably knew all of these things in advance. But are you doing them? It's so easy, isn't it, to get bogged down in the kind of day-to-day minutiae that we're not really thinking about these bigger questions about why someone should buy or what objections they might have. Okay, and it can be quite hard to address some of these issues, deal with these objections, provide that compelling reason, but we need to do that hard work if we want to see a difference. So that's it for this time. Hopefully that helped. And until next time, thanks for watching.